So when I was 15 years old, I felt my first real life calling. Thanks to a group of Olympic athletes who were coaching kids for free right here in San Jose, I fell in love with one of the most obscure sports in the world, the hammer throw. Now, I imagine you're all familiar with the shot put, the discus, maybe even the javelin. So here's the moment you've all been waiting for, hammer throwing 101. Imagine you took a 16-pound bowling ball and you lodged a broomstick into it. And then you spun it around so fast that the ball went 60 miles an hour. And it built up centrifugal force up to 500 pounds. And then you let go at just the right moment so that it could fly higher than an 8-story building and nearly the length of a football field. And that gives you some sense of the unique difficulty and appeal of hammer throwing. But despite having the best teachers in the world, the first day did not go well. In fact, I fell down. Couldn't have done worse. But I got back up, took thousands of throws, and got better over time. So while I started at 0, by the time I was a senior, I had the farthest throw for a high school student in the country. Earned a scholarship to Georgetown, go Hoyas. In '96, I made my first Olympic team, and eventually I threw 260 feet, which is one of the farthest throws in American history. Thank you. But to be honest with you, the real benefits of that activity were that it paid for my education. It allowed me to see the world. And it allowed me to form lifelong relationships with some very amazing people. But as an educator these last 20 years, I often wonder what would have happened to my Olympic dream if I had been graded in the same way that we grade kids in the classroom. Quick history of letter grading in the United States. Letter grading actually started in 1897 at Mount Holyoke College, where they decided to grade their students' work from A through E. Now, 1 year later, they realized that E was being confused with excellent. And that's where we get the F that we all know and dread. So we're talking about a 120-year-old way of assessing students. Now, assessment's great. I spent probably more time watching video of hammer throwing than I did actually throwing. But letter grades present a number of serious problems. Number one, letter grades are unreasonably permanent. So let's go back to my Olympic story. On day 1, I would have gotten an F. By the end of the semester, probably a D. Now, as a senior, I was leading the country. I'll take the A. But all of this is going to be averaged. And so I probably got about a 2.5 GPA in hammer throwing. And with a 2.5, colleges would say I'm not ready for the next level, and my Olympic dream would be over almost before it began. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, that's sports, different from academia. Well, let's check in with your typical high school freshman. Let's call him Doug. So Doug, for whatever completely rational reason, he bombs his first biology test his freshman year. Maybe he has the flu. Maybe something's going on at home. But he starts off with an F, gets better over time. By the end of the semester, Doug is the best biology student in the class. But it's all going to be averaged. So Doug gets a C+. And that C+, it's forever. So Doug, as a senior, could go on to do research worthy of a Nobel Prize in biology, but cannot get a 4.0. And I want you to think about Doug's situation. How many of us, if we were in a foot race, if you fell down at the start and you knew you had no chance of winning or even placing well, would get back up and run all out? That's really hard to do. Or consider the role reversal. I know hundreds of teachers, and I don't think there's any one of them that would want a grade on their first year of teaching that stuck to them for their entirety of their career. I know I wouldn't. What we're missing out on is the do-over. Everything that we do in life, our basic life skills, we're terrible at them at the beginning. From walking, to talking, to riding a bike, We all get better by a process of do-over. Or take design. This is a TED event, after all. The logo that everybody knows because of the cool arrow and the negative space, the FedEx logo there, famously went through 200 iterations before they got to this version. This was not 199 failures and then a sudden success. It was an evolution. Or consider the paragons of success that we admire. Thomas Edison, famously finding out 1,000 ways to not make a light bulb before the light went on. Or Walt Disney, whose first animation company went bankrupt. Or Maya Angelou, who endured one of the most difficult childhoods you could possibly imagine to come back and become one of the most influential voices of the 20th century. What do these people have in common? It's not education, it's not money, it's not privilege, it's not talent, it's resilience. And when we don't allow for a do-over, we don't build that trait that is most in common for people that have achieved great success. Grades are stressful by nature, and if we're going to talk about student stress, we should listen to them, because what they tell us is absolutely shocking. In 2015, the California Healthy Kids Survey revealed that 1 out of 3 students reported chronic sadness, depression. And the year before, the American Psychological Association asked students, what is the leading cause of stress in your life? And they identified school as number 1. And 1 in 4 said it was causing them extreme stress. And it's not just grade permanence that causes this. There's something inherent about grades themselves. I want you to imagine the world's worst video game. We're going to call it Level Down. And in Level Down, you start off with everything unlocked. You've got all the superpowers, you've got all the gear, but you only get worse over time. 2 things would happen if you played Level Down. You would lose interest very quickly, and you would also focus only on the things that could go wrong. There's nothing to strive for. And this is very much the situation of high school students. Even if our man Doug gets an A on that first biology test, he can only hold on or do worse. And so he's basically doing a tightrope walk. And if he gets to the other end of the semester with the A, the chief emotion he might experience is relief. The chief emotion of learning and bettering yourself should not be relief, it should be joy. Now you might say, well, okay, education, serious stuff, it's not a game. And I would beg to differ. It's already a game. It's just a really stressful and oftentimes boring game. And all the students know the rules to this game. Rule number 1, find out what the teacher really wants me to know. Number 2, cram the night before, or during lunch, or in the car, or during break. Number 3, spit out that answer that the teacher wanted to know, and repeat. This is not a fun game. It's a very stressful game. And we need to change the rules. Grades are counter-motivational. What I mean by that is they literally motivate traits that we don't want to foster. All right, we got 3 paths here. 1 on the left takes 3 hours. 1 in the middle takes 1 hour. 1 on the right takes 5 hours. If there's $100 at the end of this path, which road are you going to take? Students are not dumb. They'll do the same thing. This means taking the easiest classes, the easiest teachers, the least complex projects, because the payoff's the same. And as a result, what are we actually encouraging? A minimized work ethic. A conformity of knowledge. Don't question the teacher. It's only going to hurt your grade. And most painful of all for me, an actual avoidance of creativity. Why would you come up with a solution that's different than the A work that the teacher provided as a sample? I would point out that these are the traits that we look to for innovators in society. People who are incredibly hardworking, people who think differently, and people who are creative. Now, some might say, well, it's kids these days. They're just lazy. But they're not. Our man Doug, he'll work incredibly hard just after school. Whether it's doing a sport, or leveling up in a video game, or figuring out a skateboard trick, or figuring out some new song on the guitar, they will spend hours on this, on learning. What are we depriving them of in school that they're getting after school? Daniel Pink wrote a groundbreaking book called Drive, where he described that what we really are motivated by are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Essentially, we want the freedom to choose what we're doing. We want to figure out things that are hard. And we want to know that it matters, either to our future or to the benefit of the world. In short, students want the freedom to develop skills that actually matter. 4, grades distract from the actual goal of learning. All right, this is Ernie Sheldon. Ernie wanted to break the 7-foot high jump record. This was a big deal in the 1950s. No one had ever done it. It was kind of like the 4-minute mile. So Ernie was so fired up that in his bedroom, he put a tape mark at 7 feet, fixated on that number. Ernie jumped 6'11" dozens of times, but never jumped 7 feet, because he was so focused on the end result and not on the process, on actually how to jump better, that would give him the end result. So if we replace that tape with the grade, you can see the problem. And there's some research to back this up. Ruth Butler took 3 groups of kids and said, we're going to do 2 academic tasks, and group number 1, we're going to grade you. Group number 2, we're just going to give you comments. Group number 3, we're going to do both. Guess which group outperformed all others in both performance academically and in their interest in the projects? Group number 2. In other words, just knowing they were being graded actually made them perform worse. So knowing all this, why are we doing it? Who do these grades actually serve? The only answer I can come up with is colleges. They need to differentiate students. I get it. But consider the fact that 2 teachers in the same department of the same school might disagree on assessment. Or the fact that schools use different grading scales. At one school, the same student gets a 4.4, another one a 3.8. Same student. Or the fact that the letter grades don't mean anything anymore. There was a time that a C literally meant a mathematical average. I don't know a class in existence right now where that's the case. So what do? I give you some what ifs. What if more colleges subscribed to freshman forgiveness? So our state schools and our UC system and some private schools do this, but it should be standard. What if colleges focused more on portfolios, what students designed, what stories they told, what research they've done, and what have they written? You're going to get a much more clear picture of who that person actually is. All right, who can figure out what these 3 students have in common? They had the same GPA. And that's crazy. I would propose that if there was a calculation of slope that followed the GPA, something that gave us a little bit of story, a movement index, so we could understand, hey, student number 2 is excelling and probably really ready for college. He just had a rough start. We should know that story, and it's not that hard. What can educators do? We can gamify our classes. Students can level up instead of level down. We can give them a sense of mastery, so a student who's in calculus really has mastered algebra first. We can flip our classrooms. We can provide resources that students can access at home so they're not so stressed. We can have do-overs so students' work can improve over time. And lastly, we can link learning. This is when you work with a professional who's using the skills you're learning in class in their professional life, which gives it purpose. For the last 5 years, I've tried all of these, and I can tell you they work. My students are less stressed, more engaged, and producing better work. So make no mistake, there are alternatives to traditional letter grading. And in a world that is changing more quickly than ever before and facing unprecedented challenges, we're going to rely on education more than ever. And after 120 years, I hope you'll agree, we're ready for an upgrade. Thank you.